Marcus Mariota's time with the Falcons is officially over, so we're going to look ahead here at some QB options for Atlanta and try and piece together who's going to be the Week 1 starter in 2023. Will it be Desmond Ridder, or will it be someone through the draft, free agency, or a trade? A lot to get to on today's show. Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Matthew Peterson, and we got a sub battle right now with our enemies over in New Orleans in the NFC South, and that's the Saints Report, hosted by Trace Gerard here at Chat Sports. Now, the Saints Report has about 15, 16, 1,700 more subs than we do here. So we're trying to close that gap inch by inch, and hopefully we can overtake them by the time the draft comes around. So help us reach that goal if you want Falcons offseason coverage, because the offseason is not around the corner. It is here. Combine's here, free agency's next, and then the draft. So don't miss a thing, and let's stick it to our Saints channel by hitting that sub button. So when we talk about replacing Marcus Mariota, the first and obvious candidate is the guy who did replace him in 2022, and that is Desmond Ridder. It feels like Desmond Ridder is most likely going to be the starting quarterback in 2023. When we think about what Desmond Ridder has done, well, when we look at his 2022 stats, it's a small sample size, just 4 games, 708 yards and 2 touchdowns. He really didn't get going towards the end, but Desmond Ridder in 2022 did show some promise, did show some improvement as the season progressed in just 4 small starts, right? It's really hard to come away with that and have an absolute definitive opinion on Ridder after just 4 games. The quarterback room, though, it's thin. You need to add more guys to this room, right? Logan Woodside can't be your backup quarterback in 2023. Desmond Ridder needs to have some sort of pushing along in training camp. Even if he is your number 1, you got to bring in some better competition to get the best out of Ridder. Ridder showed flashes. He definitely showed like he was getting better week by week. And I wouldn't be opposed to rolling with Desmond Ridder into 2023. I do think there are players you could upgrade. And we know where I stand on Lamar Jackson, as he is better than Desmond Ridder, but that's a time for later in the video. But I think Desmond Ridder, if he is your starting quarterback in 2023, might not be the sexiest option, but I do think it's not a bad option. So let's look at some external options right now. Let's look at some guys that the Falcons could get through the draft, through free agency, and via trade as well. Starting with everyone's favorite, Lamar Jackson. I would say the room is split on this. It's not. It's like 80% of you don't want Lamar Jackson. I am in that 20% that, yes, I think Lamar Jackson is an upgrade from Desmond Ridder. Now, of course, that comes with the caveat of multiple first-round picks and a huge contract you'll have to give it out. But like it or not, the noise surrounding Lamar Jackson going to the Falcons or getting traded, it's not going away. Now, there are some reports stemming from the Combine that the Ravens are trying to get a deal done, but they were at one point $100 million apart. That's a long way to come together. Now, when we look at just his passing stats from the last 4 seasons, the last 2 years, he's missed considerable time at inopportune times, right? At the end of the season. But we are talking about a former NFL MVP who is more than just a quarterback that throws the ball down the field. He's also incredible with his legs, right? He is an extremely gifted quarterback when it comes to running the football. But through the air, I know that the numbers don't necessarily pop out, but when it comes to him on the ground, he is definitely one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. 727 career rushes, 4,400 yards, and 24 touchdowns. I don't stand here today presenting new information on who Lamar Jackson is as a quarterback. The question just comes down to, would you like the Falcons to give up a lot and give out a huge contract for him? Me personally, I would do that if I was Atlanta. And I understand there's some hesitancy from a lot of you watching right now, but I just want to remind you guys, the Falcons have been consistent at quarterback for about 2 decades now, from Vic to Ryan, with 1 year of Mariota and 1 year of Joey Harrington. Yeah, you don't want to enter what most teams go through pretty often, which is quarterback hell and trying to find the next guy. If you can advance to go and get Lamar Jackson, you make that deal 10 times out of 10. So be honest with me. I want you guys to get in the comment section here and predict who will be the Falcons starting quarterback in 2023. Let me know down in the comment section below. All right, moving on to some other QB options. These two come from the NFL draft. It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Now, the Falcons, where they currently sit right now at the draft at 8, probably not going to be able to land these two players. This would require a move up. This would require a trade, most likely into the top 3. I know that the Bears have been getting a ton of calls about their first overall pick. It seems like they are going to trade that pick away. So could the Falcons be a dark horse team to move up to number 1 and get their top quarterback? It's not out of the question. According to Ian Rappaport, the Falcons are a team to watch for when it comes to trading up for that number 1 overall pick. So definitely keep an eye on the Falcons to be busy as we get closer to the NFL draft and inquire what it would take to move up to number 1. Then the question is, who is QB1, right? If you do have the first overall pick and you are looking to take a quarterback, are you going Bryce Young or CJ Stroud? Both players extremely talented. We saw what they did at their respective schools. I know there are some size concerns with Bryce Young. He's just under or right at 6 feet tall. But we also watched him at Tuscaloosa. And I know that everyone watching is in SEC country and knows that the Alabama offense, sure, might not have gotten into the playoffs, but Bryce Young was a fine quarterback to say the least. We are talking about a Heisman winner after all. And then there's CJ Stroud, who in my opinion, he had some great games, but man, oh man, did he suck against some bad teams, right? Little traits of Bo Callahan. I can't quite put my finger on it, but both guys are sure to be top 3 picks in this upcoming draft, I think. So with that in mind, will the Falcons draft a quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft? I think they're going to at some point, whether it's in round 1 with a random, even if they stay put and go like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, or do they wait till Jake Haener or Aiden O'Connell, even a Hendon Hooker, maybe a little bit later in the draft? We're going to get some other QB options in just a second, but first things first, St. Patrick's Day right around the corner, and you don't want to be pinched, right? You want to be the guy who's got some green on for St. Patty's, so make sure you get this awesome Falcons St. Patrick's Day t-shirt. It's under $30. Go to the link right below. I've also put it in the comments and the description of today's show, so check it out, chatsports.com/FalconsGreen. We got more options for the Falcons at quarterback. This one coming through the draft as well, and it would be the University of Florida's Anthony Richardson. Now, as a Tennessee guy, a graduate of UT, I don't like Florida, and I definitely don't like Anthony Richardson. Not from a dislike of Tennessee versus Florida, but I don't like him as an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I know we all drool over his highlights. I remember drooling over Malik Willis's highlights last year. How's that worked out so far? Anthony Richardson in 2022, those aren't the numbers of a top 10 quarterback. 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. I get it. He's got extreme athleticism for his size. That's a rare combination. But did anyone, think back to last year. Did anyone watching Florida think this is a quarterback that's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft? No. He's probably got the highest upside in this NFL draft with his arm strength, speed, and overall size. But he's also got the possibility to play I wouldn't say kind of like the way he played in college, which was not an NFL starting quarterback, just a really athletic player who's got a cannon of an arm and can make a bunch of great throws down the field. But I never saw Anthony Richardson progress as a quarterback who can read defenses, right? Go through his progressions, know what to do based on how the defense lined up. There's a big element of being an NFL quarterback that's more than just he's got a cannon of an arm and he can also run really quickly. There's a million of those guys every single year. Most of them don't turn out really well. So with that, I'm passing on Anthony Richardson. Now, speaking of quarterbacks that are definitely going to get a GM fired, there's Will Levis. I don't get it. I don't get it. I do not understand the hard-on people have for Will Levis. Again, I watched him play all last year and the year before in Kentucky, and not once did I think that right there is an NFL starting quarterback that deserves to go round one. 2,400 yards for the Wildcats, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's 6'3", he's 232 pounds. You know, he's got good mechanics. He goes through his reads well. Yeah, I know that I was looking for that out of Anthony Richardson, but he doesn't provide much of a spark. He doesn't look like a quarterback that can go 95 yards with one timeout in the last 2 minutes of a game. I've never been very high in Will Levis. Keep me away from him. Keep me away from anyone that puts mayonnaise in their coffee, as a matter of fact. Will Levis, if he goes round one, mark my words, whatever GM takes him is going to be fired within 2 years. Now, there are some more QB options, not just limited to the draft. And in free agency, Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo are probably the biggest QB names on the street. So let's compare Jimmy G and DC. In 2022, Derek Carr played in 15 games before being benched for Jarrett Stidham. And Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, got injured down the stretch and Big Cock Brock took over. Now, Derek Carr, I like to make fun of because I'm not a big Derek Carr stan or truther. But the blind QB stats, they're not too shabby. 3,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. And then there's Jimmy Garoppolo. No one knows what to make of Jimmy G. He wins games. He goes to the playoffs. But even his own team doesn't really want him. He's got plenty of years left in the league. I don't love the idea of signing an expensive veteran quarterback in free agency. I don't think this roster is a expensive free agent quarterback away from really going the distance. I think teams like the Jets make more sense where they've got a great defense around it. The Falcons aren't quite there yet. They're hoping that they can get there, but the last thing you want to do is hitch your wagon to a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, pay him $40 million, probably a bit of an overpay, and not have a roster constructed around them to win when these are quarterbacks that need good rosters to win. But who do you think the better quarterback is? Is it Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo? They're both enigmas, right? I just can't crack either one. I think I'd go Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think Derek Carr Derek Carr has better stats, but if I had to win, I'm rolling with 10. All right, moving on to my fourth and final QB option on this segment here, third from free agency, and it's Jacoby Brissett. Now, this is a lower level move that's not going to break the bank like Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo would. I like Jacoby Brissett. I think this is an ideal backup for Desmond Ridder. Someone who can come in, be a great influence on Ridder, right? He's been all across the league. He's played for multiple teams. He knows multiple offenses. But at the same time, he's not a lame duck quarterback. He's not just going to sit back and go, Ridder, the job's yours. No, he's going to push him. And if Desmond Ridder ultimately just doesn't work out to be the guy, you could turn to Jacoby Brissett for the last half of the season or so and still win football games. In 2022 for the Browns, 2,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Those stats might not jump out at you, but as someone who watched a lot of Cleveland Browns football last year, he played better than those numbers indicate. I think Brissett would be a really good pickup for the Falcons. Now, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Subscribe right now if you love the Falcons and you want the best Falcons YouTube content all off season long.